Welcome back to the Sweat, and welcome for the first time today to our baseball panel. DraftKings contributors Garion Thorne and Nick Friar, along with RotoWire's Erik Halterman. We're kicking it off with a rousing game of MLB Cover the Bases, looking for your favorite DFS or sportsbook plays for the slate today. So first is going to be the DFS picture that you are targeting today. Garion, who's it going to be?
Yeah, this is a, how do I put this politely? God-awful pitching slate. So you kind of have to get a little creative on this one or take some risks. And I think the risk that I want to take tonight is using a guy in Colorado, which is not something I would generally want to do. But German Marquez is by far the best pitcher on this slate. He's got the best matchup. And if you're at all concerned about him pitching at the altitude, across his last 10 starts, he has a 1.88 ERA. He's holding opponents to a 2.07 WOBA. And 6 of those 10 starts have been in Colorado at Coors Field. He's given up 4 earned runs in his past 41 innings in Colorado. So he's only $8,100, but the fact he's cheaper than like Bailey Ober and Trevor Williams, I don't quite understand the pricing tonight. So take advantage of this relatively modest price tag for German Marquez.
Nick, are you going to be taking advantage of a more moderately priced pitcher?
Yeah, you got to go with German Marquez tonight. I'm in complete agreement with Garion on this one. And the one hiccup that he's had in his last 10 starts was not at Coors Field. He has been the model of consistency there and over the his last 10 starts in general. He did face the Mariners back on June 23rd. He got 7 strikeouts against them, so the punch-outs are in play too. Of course, we need those. And then the Mariners in general, they're not good against right-handed pitching this month. They have the worst ISO against right-handed pitching and second to last OPS against right-handed pitching this month. So I feel like German Marquez, he might be a little chalky in the end because he's the only no-brainer pitcher right now that's available for tonight's slate.
Erik, is he so much of a no-brainer that you also picked him?
He was on my short list, but I guess I'm a little bit more optimistic about some of the guys we have on here. I don't think it's not a strong pitching slate, but I don't think it's one of the weakest ones we've seen in the past couple weeks. Maybe that's because I'm a big Tarek Skubal fan at 7,700 against the Rangers. He's a guy I really liked when he was coming up last year because in the minor leagues over the course of his career, he struck out 37.1% of opposing batters, which seems to, foreshadow some really high whiff numbers in the majors. Obviously, you can fall a fair bit from 37% and still be one of the better strikeout guys in the league. But from through all of last season through this April, just struck out 23% of opposing batters and had a 5.83 ERA while also keeping the ball on the ground less than a quarter of the time. But since the start of May, he's really been quite good. 3.78 ERA while getting that strikeout rate back over 30% and that ground ball rate just shy of 40%. I think he's a legitimately good starter now. I think we've seen it for a few months. His ERA has ticked up a bit in his past few starts, but there seems to be some bad batted ball luck there. He's still getting the strikeouts, and against a lineup as weak as the Rangers, I think he's actually quite a strong play.
All right, good stuff. Let's move on to hitters. Nick, a hitter that you're liking. Perhaps you're paying all the way up for Vlad Guerrero Jr. after saving some money with your pitcher.
I'm not saying you can't do that, but I am going to give you guys another value play here. I'm going to go with a hitter. And of course, when I go with value plays, I like to look at the batter pitcher options. But when I can combine that with recent form, that's a match made in heaven. And I think AJ Pollock is that tonight at 3.7K going up against Alex Wood. Recently, he has a 1368 OPS in the month of July. Over his last 10 games, he has 5 home runs and 4 doubles. So, I mean, in general, I feel like you would be comfortable backing this guy. But against Alex Wood as well, he has 24 career plate appearances, 1284 OPS. So small sample size for that. But he does have 2 home runs and 3 doubles in that span. So the power is there. It's not just on base. So I'm going with AJ Pollock as my DFS hitter tonight.
Erik, are you saving a little bit of cash with your hitter too?
Yeah, I am, although I'm not sure why I get to save cash while picking Jesse Winker at 3,900, which might mean everybody in the world's on Jesse Winker. But I don't know, what is he doing south of 4,000? I guess it's because he was in a bit of a slump heading into last night. Over that 12-game stretch before his 3-hit game last night, he had an OPS of just 361, which sure, okay, that's pretty bad. But He had a 987 OPS before the start of that stretch, and I think that much longer, what he's done for most of this season should matter a lot more than he's done just the last couple weeks. And what he's done all season is be one of the best hitters in the league. 296 batting average is almost an exact match for his 291 expected batting average. Slugging 527, again, is barely above his expected stats there. He makes a ton of contact, striking out just over 17% of the time, and that's right in line with his career numbers, but he's finally showing more power. He's 30th in the league in isolated power, tied with Josh Donaldson, one spot ahead of Pete Alonso. So he's a great all-around hitter, even if he was slumping heading into last night. It's just way too cheap at south of 4,000, especially against Robert Stock, who's mostly a reliever and has a 4.65 career ERA. So maybe the whole world's going to be on Winker, but I'll be one of those people.
Garion, who are you going to be on?
Yeah, I'll also look to save some money here. Gavin Sheets is just $3,100. This could just easily be chalked up to the fact he hit a massive 3-run home run last night. But in all actuality, since being called up from AAA, he's been unstoppable against right-handed pitching. He's only got 48 plate appearances within the split, but he's got a 475 isolated power and a 206 WRC plus against righties so far this season. And essentially any left-handed bat against Bailey Ober is Ted Williams this season. They're hitting 343 with 2.93 home runs per 9 off of Minnesota's right-hander. So at just above $3,000 for a guy with this kind of ceiling because of his raw power, one of my favorite dollar-for-dollar plays tonight, if I'm being honest.
All right, for third, let's move to sportsbook. So Erik, hit me with a run line or money line bet.
Yeah, I like the Marlins at -110 over the Nationals. I don't know why this is basically even, given the pitching matchup. I guess it's because people are scared to bet on a team that just lost 18-1 last night. That's fair. But I think I'd be surprised if I saw a result anything like that here. I get the Marlins aren't a great lineup. They're banged up. Jazz Chisholm's out with a shoulder issue. Starling Marte, though, he missed yesterday's game with a minor shoulder issue of his own. Looks like he's going to be back. But the gap between the pitchers is just too big. Trevor Rogers going for the Marlins. He's definitely the real deal. He showed signs last year with a 30% strikeout rate, but in a small sample still had an ERA north of 6 due to some bad batted ball luck, home run luck. Some of the ERA estimators had him in the mid-3s. This year, he's got an ERA all the way down at 2.31, and again, that exact same 30% strikeout rate. This frontline starter stuff left you with a fastball that sits about close to 95 miles per hour. On the opposite side, we've got a 34-year-old Paulo Espino, who had only had 30 innings in the big leagues before this season, has a fastball that sits under 90 miles per hour, and his numbers look like it, just striking out 16.6% of opposing batters. That 3.33 ERA for him doesn't look at all real. So given that massive gap between starters, I think that's a far larger gap than the gap between the two lineups.
Gary, in a run line or money line bet that you're targeting?
Yeah, Erik already talked about Tarik Skubal and how he's in a great spot tonight. I think the Tigers in general are in a great spot. They're -125 favorites at home. That's a relatively soft line for me. And a big part of this isn't just about how good Skubal has been his last 10 starts, but that the Rangers really can't hit left-handed pitching in general. There's a reason the Blue Jays, when given the option coming out of the All-Star break to kind of reassess their rotation, went Robbie Ray, Hyunjin Ryu, and then Steven Matz. You use left-handed pitching against the Texas Rangers. They have the lowest isolated power against southpaws of any American League team at 138. They've also been outscored 39-2 in their past 4 games. So things are not exactly trending in the right direction for the Rangers right now, where the Tigers, on the other hand, are 6-0 in their last 6 home games, and they're 10-6 overall in their past 16 games. So I'm not saying the Tigers are a great team, but they've been playing decent baseball the past 2 months, where the Rangers might be the worst team in the American League.
Nick, where are you going?
I still can't believe, just on Garion's bet, I still cannot believe that the Tigers tagged Kyle Gibson like they did last night. So I'm with them on that, but I'm actually going to go with the Royals money line for my pick tonight. So a little bit off the main slate. That's the 4:00 game, moved up for the Bucks game tonight. The Royals are the road dogs in Milwaukee. The Royals are crushing left-handed pitching this month. I know on DK Sportsbook, Brett Anderson is listed as starting pitcher, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be Eric Lauer tonight. Either way, I don't care. The Royals are still going to go and do well against whichever lefty the Brewers put on the mound. If it's Lauer, I know he's riding an 18 and 1/3 inning stretch of one-run ball, but that's against the Rockies, the Pirates, and the Reds. And I know the Reds, we think Castellanos and does well against lefties. They've all done poorly against lefties of late, all those teams. And I know Minor hasn't been what he was pre the whole spider tack thing. I'm not saying he necessarily used it, but since those rules came down, he has not been the same. But the Brewers have the second worst ISO against left-handed pitching this month, and they are bottom 5 in OPS against left-handed pitching this month. And as for the bullpens that play into this, their FIPS indicate favorable regressions for this pick in both directions.
All right, real quick here, take us home with a game total, Garion.
Yes, I'm going to go back to this Colorado-Seattle game. The total's set at 11. The under is -105. I just trust German Marquez. The Rockies might be able to score 7 runs tonight off of Marco Gonzalez, whose expected ERA is above 8. But Gonzalez is a decent pitcher. He had a 3.10 ERA last season. I just think that this is more like a 5-4 game than it is, 9-8. So I'll take the under in Colorado.
Nick, a game total you want to bet?
I am with Garion on this. And one point I will make, in addition to what he said, Marco Gonzalez, actually for the Rockies, they are the worst in ISO against left-handed pitching this month and bottom 5 in OPS versus left-handed pitching this month. So yeah, I'm comfortable with taking the under in this Rockies game.
Erik, where are you going?
I'll go with a different under. That would be under 8.5 runs in the Rangers-Tigers game, which is at +100. We've already talked about Tarek Skubal. I'm willing to buy him as a legitimately good pitcher, given his strikeout prowess in the minors that seems to be returning for the bulk of this season. And Dane Dunning on the other side, I think is better than his 4.22 ERA suggests. A lot of those ERA estimators have him in the mid-3s, combines the strikeout and walk rate that are both a hair better than league average. With a ground ball rate all the way up at 53.8%. That's 10th best among pitchers who've thrown at least 70 innings. That's a proven way to be successful in the majors. So even though the Tigers put up, 14 or something last night, I can't see them getting close to that today. These are two offenses that generally aren't very good, averaging a combined 8.2 runs per game. And when you get two pitchers that I like, I don't think they're going to manage to score too many runs here.